So my name is Jamie Bass, and I am a 4-H youth development educator for Piatt and DeWitt counties. I've been with Extension since 2007.
Okay.
So I went to Eastern Illinois University and I got my undergrad degree in health studies. And I really liked being out in the community and doing education. And so after Eastern, I decided to go to St. Louis University and I got my degree in public health with a concentration in behavior science and health ed. So that's really fancy word for I wanted to change people's behavior and get them excited about being healthy. So that's what I did. After that, I worked for the St. Louis Asthma Consortium, and it was an organization based out of SLU at School of Public Health. We had a $5 million grant from the Centers for Disease Control to reduce the asthma rates and prevent asthma in the city. And so I worked on several different initiatives with that. And so I was, to be honest, I was stuck in a cube in the college, and I learned that the days that I really liked my job is when I got to go out and actually meet with pharmacists and do interventions, to teach them interventions to do with their patients, going out to school nurses, getting out to the schools, and I realized that I needed to get out of the cube land. So I reached out to the extension office here in Champaign. I was a 10-year 4-H'er here, so I knew the county director and just kind of told her what I was doing, if she ever had any jobs available. And about a week later, she called me and she said, hey, we actually want to do some health programs here. Send me your resume, and the rest is kind of history. So I started out doing health and wellness programs here at Extension. I became a program coordinator and then became an educator in 2010. And then we went through the reorg. And so through that process, I became the 4-H youth development educator for Champaign, Ford, Vermilion, and Iroquois counties. And then in January 2018, earlier this year, I actually moved over to county. So now I just cover Piatt and DeWitt counties. So I never thought when I started this job that I would love to work with teenagers, and that is absolutely one of my passions now. I know, it's crazy, but I do. I love it because I love to see them challenge themselves and do new things. And so that's what I like to do with the teens, is do things that they don't get in sports, in school, in their other organizations, in FFA, any of that. And so I really like the teen teacher program because it really is something different that they do. My other interest, of course, is healthy living. And so Food Challenge is probably one of the biggest programs that I absolutely love. I've done it with elementary school all the way on up to actually adults. We've done it as families. And I have seen this program really get kids excited about eating healthy, making their own food, making their own choices, as well as teamwork and presenting in front of others. And so those are really some key skills that I find, especially at the middle school, high school, that they can really work on. And we use the Food Challenge to do that. So I always tell people there's kind of two hats I wear. So one side is the club hat, and so we have our traditional 4-H clubs as well as new special interest spin clubs. So my job is kind of overall leadership for all of those, and so we have program coordinators who I work with to implement that program. We manage volunteers, we put on workshops, do teen events, different things for the club side. So there's a lot of rules and regulations in that, and I kind of make sure that's all hopefully going smoothly. The other side that I'm responsible for is programmatically, and so what we're trying to do is make an impact on today's youth. So things like the Food Challenge, the 4-H Teen Teachers, those are all programs that we work with, and so I go out and do the direct education. So on Friday, for example, I have an hour of time to go to 20 teachers in a school district. So what I'm doing is, one, explaining to them what 4-H is. It's a rural area, but they don't have a lot in 4-H, but we're always trying to get people past the misconception that 4-H is just for rural kids. And so I am going to talk to them about our clubs, how they can incorporate it into their classrooms even, and then more programs and how to get their kids involved in the after school program that we're doing up there. So that's kind of the two hats of responsibility. So I do some grant, I would say grant management, but sort of budget management. So we can apply for grants through the state 4-H office, and then we manage that to run our programs. And so all of that, plus we've got committee meetings, youth committee meetings, unit council, things like that. It's all part of the daily responsibility of just making sure the overall program of 4-H and youth development is strong. I think some of the advantages are I have a pretty flexible job and I really appreciate that. I've got 2 small kids now, and so like tonight I won't get home till about 7 o'clock, so I'm able to come in a little late, and so that's one of the nice advantages is I have some flexibility with that. And so if I work, if I work a weekend, I have a workshop or I have an achievement night, like I have a couple of those coming up, I can flex my time a little bit. So I have to say that's kind of one of the advantages. I think the second advantage for me for sure is 4-H is such a family-friendly environment. 2 weekends ago, I had a family Fall Fest recruitment event up in Clinton, and my husband got called out to the field unexpectedly. It never happens, and he got called out that day. I didn't have a sitter for my 2 kids, so I brought them along with me, and so that was something really nice that then, people got to see me as, yes, I'm the educator, but I have a family too, I'm just like them, and it gets my 3-year-old, she knows 4-H, she sees the 4-H's on there, so we talk about that. So I think that's probably some of the advantages that I see. Disadvantages. This job can consume you. It has been so exciting to switch units and get people excited about 4-H that have never heard of it, never had it, build new programs, get out there, and that feeling is infectious. And so that's something that keeps me going, but the problem is you have to not work 100 hours a week, especially with 2 kids at home. So I think for me, it's really setting my goals, and I do that. I set my goals for the year, and I really stick with them. And so when we have teachers that call up or people say, oh, wouldn't this be great to do? I'd say, it is, but right now, we just don't have staff. We can't fit that into our plan, but we do have this to offer. And so a lot of times we're able to show people what we do have. So I definitely think you have to be your own advocate as far as watching your hours in this job, because you create your own work, and so you could work yourself out of this job very easily. So I love to be out with kids, with people, that's my passion, but we have to do a lot of emailing to set that stuff up. So I have to allow time to balance that, how much email I'm doing. One thing that I set, and I know this goes into one of our next questions about advice or whatever, I don't check email at home. That is something that I started when I realized how many hours I was putting in, and when I'm home, that's my home time. So my husband knows that if I need to stay 30 minutes late to finish that project, when I get home, I am 100% there at home. So I think that is a daily challenge, is trying to balance that email, setting things up, and doing that. I think one of the other challenges is we do work with volunteers. And so it's a fine line, it's a balanced line between how much autonomy do we give them, how much freedom do we give them, but yet we have rules and regulations and things we need to follow. We also need to obviously make sure our kids are safe. So we have things in place for that, but we also want kids to have fun. And so really trying to work with volunteers and make sure it's the best program we have. I would say that's a daily challenge, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have volunteers that run our club program. So they are the ones that are volunteering to their time, their talents, their gifts, their money, everything to their clubs. And so a lot of our clubs, they just meet once a month, but a lot of leaders spend a lot more time than that. If they do any kind of community service, if they do any kind of, fun events, it is definitely more than once a month for that. So what we do then, is we put out all the rules, the regulations. Things are constantly changing from the university that comes through us and down. So like liability forms, fiscal management, all of that kind of stuff. Then we have to figure out how do we make that work for our volunteers. I would say the other part that we're doing with volunteers is we're really trying to figure out how to utilize organizations, partners, teachers that are already in their capacity, and then to us though, they're a volunteer. And so the school district I'm working with in the rural area, they've never had an after school program. So the school district they've offered and they are paying for a teacher to stay, but we are providing the team teachers, the supplies, the programming using a grant. So it's a unique partnership for us. But for us, those are volunteers. And so they are now club leaders and program leaders for us. Get to know, if you want to do 4-H, get to know the 4-H staff. That's probably one of the biggest things. I always talk about how I find my interns. It's by going to a class and talking, and then people come up to me. That's how we got Brooke. Now, she's here hired full-time here at the Champaign office. So it's all about who you know and your connections in this world. I would say the second part is take advantage of any opportunity you can. The first job I was telling you about with the Asthma Consortium, I started with them. That were my internship, and I started not paid. I went ahead and I took the chance, and they saw what I could do in a relatively short amount of time, like under a month, and they figured out how to make money into their grant to pay me, and then it turned into full-time employment. So you never know what opportunities are out there. I would say also, I never thought I would be doing this. Like even though I was a 4-H'er, I really thought I was gonna be doing health and wellness. So kind of the cool part is I get to do that as part of my job. And so you really kind of, in this job, probably another advantage would be I get to make this job what I want, and that's kind of the cool thing. So it's probably the advice is just because you think you're going into a certain area, you never know where it will take you. And again, just don't burn bridges. That's probably another thing as the small world that it is, and everybody is so connected now using technology, especially. You can see all that. So don't burn bridges and keep in touch.
Definitely. All right. Thank you.